all for all of your help in making this happen. As you mentioned, my name is Allie. I'm thrilled to be offering this course on behalf of Mission Community Services. I am the owner of Benevolent Bookkeeping. As you mentioned, I help small business owners control their finances using QuickBooks Online. So this webinar is designed for small business owners who are mostly unfamiliar with the role of bookkeeping and how it relates to their business finances. We will share a copy of the slides for anyone that is interested, and there'll also be a recording of the presentation on MCSC's YouTube channel, along with all of the other recordings that they have available. So check those out. And I'll kick us off here. So we are here for Bookkeeping for Small Businesses, also known as managing the money side of your business. So who is this webinar for? So you aspire or are a small business owner or entrepreneur. Essentially, this class is catered to micro and small businesses. Larger businesses usually have more complex bookkeeping needs. The basics do still apply. If you do have a complex business and have been managing your books for a while, this course might be a little bit too introductory for you. Number two, this webinar is for people that would like a better understanding of what bookkeeping is and how it relates to your business finances. So most entrepreneurs, as we know, are amazing at doing that thing that they do, but you might not be amazing at organizing your finances or interpreting your financial reports. And that's where bookkeeping comes in. This is also a good class if you're not sure where to begin organizing your financial data or what your options are, and also a good class if you like an actionable plan. So I'm just going to go kind of through what our learning objectives are for the time here. I believe we have an hour and a half. I like this presentation to be right around an hour. And then if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. Number one, we're going to talk about what is bookkeeping and why does it matter? Number two, what are the advantages to organize finances? Number three, what are 7 steps that you can take to set up your business for success? And number 4, we're going to talk about different methods and softwares for bookkeeping. So we're going to kind of compare your options. So if you haven't gotten a start, this will be a nice little overview for you. All right. And before we kind of dive into some of these learning objectives here, I'd like to kind of go over some key terms. So this is sort of my glossary. These are terms that are going to come up again and again in both accounting and bookkeeping. So to get us started, we've got this one here, transactions. So it seems pretty basic, but this is money in and money out. So this is also going to be considered a change to your business's finances. For example, a transaction could be buying materials, getting a loan, even non-monetary items like depreciation and getting paid. These all occur in transactions. Let's see. So a good example of a transaction, kind of basic, but if you're buying a chair for your office, this is going to affect 2 different accounts. We'll go into accounts here. You're going to pay for that chair using cash, and then you're also going to get an asset to your business or a piece of furniture for your business. So that account would be furniture. Essentially, the accounts, when we are thinking about it regarding bookkeeping, these are going to be your categories for all of your transactions. So like we just said, if you're, buying supplies, you want all of those similar expenses to go into the same account so that when you look at a report at the end of the year, you can see easily, hey, this is what I spent on furniture. This is what I spent on software. And so we're doing that by using these different accounts. So these are our categories. I like to call them buckets. So the types of buckets that we have, you can have bank card accounts, credit card accounts, asset, liability, equity, and then there's also the income and expense accounts. Kind of get into that right here. So expense accounts. I think we all kind of know what our expenses look like, right? So these are our money out. This is obviously a big part of running our business. These are all of our spend, our costs, our bills. Depending on what line of business you're in, this could be any number of things: advertising, rent, payroll, taxes. So that's going to be specific, obviously, to your industry. For revenue, obviously, the other side of that is going to be your money in. So you've got your sales and your income. This could be service revenue. This could be fees, interest revenue, income. So you're selling a product or a service. This is how you're going to get that money in. Our next piece is going to be assets. Assets are things that are owned by the business. You'll also hear the term liquid or current assets, which can also, you could call those long-term or fixed assets. When we're talking about assets that are owned by the business, current assets are things that within the year you could pretty much sell and get cash for. Long-term assets are things that would take longer to essentially turn that into actual cash for the business. So here you're looking at things like inventory, equipment, accounts receivable, PP&E, that's going to be property and equipment there. Next piece, we've got some liabilities. These are things that are actually owed by the business. So these are going to be amounts that you owe to somebody else. So this might be your debt, also known as liquid or current liabilities and long-term liabilities. So you might have a small loan that you owe somebody within a year. That would be a liquid liability. You might have a loan that's a 20-year loan. That's going to be more like a long-term liability. Things like credit cards fall under this, as well as accounts payable. The last little piece of definition we'll talk about here is equity. And that's the money that the business owner essentially puts into the business, also known as capital. This could look like an owner's contribution, you just putting cash into the business. Sometimes this also happens when you use a personal account and buy something for your business. So you're actually going to add that to an owner's contribution piece. All right, so we're going to go to our next kind of definition here. These are things you'll also hear come up pretty frequently in the bookkeeping and accounting world is cash versus accrual accounting. Most basically, the biggest difference is essentially the timing. So when is the money coming in or out recorded? In a cash system, it's when that money actually hits your bank account. So if someone owes me $100, in the cash system, once that $100 hits my bank account, that's when I've accounted for the income. In the accrual system, just someone owing me, I'm actually going to count that income then. That guy owes me $100. I know I'm going to have it in my bank account. Under the accrual system, I know that in the future they're due to pay me, and I'm actually going to count that as revenue now. So you can kind of think about some of the pros and cons with the cash system. It's pretty easy to understand. However, it's hard. It doesn't have as much predictive value. For example, if you've invoiced people for a few $1,000s, you can't necessarily see that in a cash accounting system. You'll only see when you get paid, not what's owed to you in the future. The accrual system is considered more accurate. It definitely is more complex. We're talking about accounts payable and accounts receivable, and the timing of those two items. All right. I just like to throw a little quote in here just because I have to. This is Dee Hawk, who is the founder, now retired, of CEO Visa International. Says, making good judgments and acting wisely when one has complete data, facts, and information is not leadership. It's not even management. It's bookkeeping. I like to think about bookkeeping as just having all of our financial information in front of our face in a way that's easy to understand. Let's see. So really, in order to make smart decisions about our business, we need a full deck of cards. So we need all the information and we need the data, which comes in the form of financial transactions. In using that, we can talk a little bit about what is bookkeeping and why does it matter? So the idea of bookkeeping can be really daunting, especially to a small business owner who's managing, who has many, many plates spinning in the air. So we're going to kind of just break it down for you. So bookkeeping is technically defined as the recording of the day-to-day transactions of a business. Each transaction is categorized by the accounts that it affects, and that's how we organize financial data. So in a nutshell, another useful way to determine what bookkeeping really is to sort of compare the role of an accountant to that of a bookkeeper. I think people kind of confuse these two things pretty frequently. So we can kind of break it down this way. We've got our accountant over here. We've got our bookkeeper over here. Our bookkeeper records and sorts our financial information. They're going to take information from the bank account. They're going to put it into a method that makes sense, usually some sort of a report that we're going to give to our accountant. The accountant then analyzes, organizes, and advises on that financial information. Your bookkeeper's role is to manage your daily financial tasks. like categorizing expenses and creating financial statements, maybe something to do with processing bills or invoices and your payroll. Your accountant is going to look at the bigger picture. They're advising on things like your business entity. They're going to talk about tax strategy. They're going to tell the bookkeeper, this is how we want these reports organized. When we're looking at the different levels of education, an accountant is going to have a higher level of education and certification. Means a couple of things, right? They're smart. You definitely want to get some of their knowledge and some of their information. They're also more expensive, right? So at the end of the day, you're hoping to go to your accountant with a couple of questions, maybe you only need maybe an hour of their time. Your bookkeeper can help you get all those pieces sorted beforehand. As far as how often you're talking to these folks, usually you're talking to your accountant maybe on a quarterly, maybe even just an annual interaction. Oftentimes with a bookkeeper, you're looking at monthly, quarterly, sometimes even weekly interactions. So from here, we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, what are the advantages to organized finances? Why does it matter if I have a profit and loss or a balance sheet to present to somebody, or, whatever's in my bank account is what's in my bank account. So what are sort of some of the advantages and what impact can organized finances have on your business? So got a couple of things here. One, obviously with financial reports, just looking at your bank statement, you can't tell kind of at a glance, how much did I spend on payroll? How much did I spend on rent? You can sort of sort through those things looking at it, but a financial report is going to make these things very simple to look at and you'll be able to compare over time. Another reason that that's really important is to be able to set and exceed goals. So if you don't have an overall picture of what your expenses are, it's hard to say, I'd like to reduce that by 10%, or, hey, this category is looking like it's a really high amount of spend. I'd really like to lower that in the next year and increase my profit. So having organized financial information allows you to set those goals and make sure that you're meeting them. Another important piece to a lot of business is cash flow. So like I said, looking at your bank account gives you some information and insight into your business, but it maybe doesn't show you what can be expected in the future, the timing of when would be a smart time to make a larger purchase, maybe when is a smarter time to not make those bigger purchases and sort of get through your slower season. And then on top of that, we've got tax time. So remember in that previous slide where we were talking about the price of CPAs, oftentimes if you can go to your CPA with a nice package, give that to them, you're going to save a lot of money in the long run as far as how much of your accountant's time you need and your tax advisor's time, being able to give them an organized set of finances. All right, I'm just looking through my notes here. Don't want you guys to miss any key pieces of information. Let's see. All right. All right. Oh, another, kind of missed this, but obvious financial reports. If you're a growing business and you are trying to get somebody to invest in your business, maybe get a loan, or, give some sort of presentation, those financial reports are going to be very important to stakeholders, like banks or investors, people that really want to be able to understand the financial picture of your business over time. So that's another great advantage to having some organized financial reporting. And then I'm just going to go into a little bit of what are some of the relevant source documents. So what are the sorts of things that you're supposed to be collecting if you are trying to have organized finances? Bank statements. So we want loan statements. We want bank statements. We want every payroll or every payment processor that you use. We want those statements. Are you using Venmo, PayPal? All of those things are going to help us record fees, make sure that all of your expenses and inherently your deductions are being calculated. So that's going to be a big piece of what I do as a bookkeeper, is dealing with all those different types of statements. Receipts also, most people think about, that shoebox of receipts when they think about bookkeeping. These definitely are important. I think more to the IRS, honestly, than me as a bookkeeper. I'll see expenses come through your bank account. However, in order to keep track of some of those things or to remind yourself, a lot of people are going to hold on to those receipts. We keep track of things like invoices. And that way we know, things that we've ordered, things that we're purchasing. We've got our sales record. So like I mentioned before, if you're using things like Square, PayPal, Venmo, those are all going to be your point of sales records. Things like deposit slips, if you're depositing cash into your business, records of those. And then things like payroll. If you do have payroll, a lot of different reports going to be involved with those, including some monthly journal, as well as some tax reporting items. All right. Hopefully not breezing through this too quickly, but we're just we're cruising. When I kind of go into some sort of a seminar or workshop, I like to be able to walk away with something as sort of a to-do. So this was my my 7 steps to set up your business for success. So these are just some things that I see as a bookkeeper over and over again. I'll also call this Small Business Finance 101. Let's see. All right. All right. Thanks, Jim. Talking about just looking at the pace, just making sure we're all on the same page. Let's see here. So we've got our actionable steps to organize finances. So like I said, if you already have a business kind of set up, hopefully you've already touched on some of these items. If you haven't, no better time than the present. I promise you it will not negatively affect you if you try to take some of these things and put them into practice. I do a lot of QuickBooks cleanups in my line of work. And so these are some common things that we see. So this is the golden rule. Separate your business and your personal banking. This is going to be the easiest way to keep organized. You might have heard the term of the piercing of the corporate veil. All that means is that you really are trying to keep your business finances separate from your personal finances. What I will say, the easiest way to do this, the only way I think to do this, is set up a business bank account. It doesn't matter how on point you are and what spreadsheets you're keeping. If you can have all of your business transactions coming in and out of one business banking account, whether that's a checking account, probably a checking account, probably not a savings account, that is going to be the best way for you to keep all of your things in one place and be able to communicate to your bookkeeper and your account. So keeping these separate makes things a lot easier and more efficient. There's no untangling accounts at the end of the year, which is the bane of my existence. Also, another interesting way to think about this, or just for more motivation, a lot of times I'll have people that, it's just their personal bank account and I'm trying to pull out all of the business banking transactions. That also means that I'm going to see all of your personal transactions. So I know where you're hanging out and what you're up to. So if you don't want your accountant or your tax advisor to have that much insight into your life, just keep those two things, separated. So that's my 2 cents there. Get off my soapbox. All right, our second step. So that's my first actionable step. Separate those. So go ahead and open yourself up that banking account. Number 2, in any way that we can, we're going to start to try to track some of our expenses and our income. So a lot of people, as they just get started, might just do the bag of receipts, right? We got to start somewhere. Some people maybe are going to use a spreadsheet. I am a QuickBooks Pro advisor, so everything that I do, I'm tracking expenses and income using that software. So that's my number 2 step, is in whichever way feels best for you. I'll say, my friend's dad, he's been in business for 40 years. He still uses a composition book, and that has been working for him. And I don't think he's going to change it. And as long as that works for you and all of your financial advisors, then as long as you've got some sort of a system, right? Let's see. All right. So step number 3. So now that you've kind of got an idea of starting to track those expenses and that income, let's go ahead and try to establish a bookkeeping system, right? So you're starting to keep a good idea of where your money is going out, where your money's coming in. And now we need to decide, how do you want to keep these things organized? Are you a composition book sort of person? Are you a software? What kind of software do you want? There's going to be a ton of different options. Essentially, you want to manage and monitor your finances. And once you have kind of a system you'll be able to sort of do this in a streamlined way. So it doesn't take as much mental space, right? Every week, every month. Oh, where is everything at? You know that you're kind of up to date with everything. So that's kind of our step 3 there, is sort of picking out, and we'll go over some of the different options in section 4 for picking out some different bookkeeping systems. All right, my step number 4 here, different step 4, initiative 4, I should say, is going to be to have a conversation with that CPA. So you're going to set yourself up for success. I think that there's nothing wrong with finding a few accountants that are either in your niche, right? They're either in your industry or they're just local folks, and see if they offer something like a 30-minute free consultation call. See, why, what do they have to offer? And that way, also at the end of the year, if you do have some hard questions, you've already established a relationship with somebody. You can, if you're ever kind of starting to talk with a bookkeeper as a different step, you have somebody to ask those larger tax implication type of questions. So that's, even if you're not setting up a 2-hour, $1,000 appointment, just get a 30-minute, consultation call. See if you guys vibe, see what kind of advice they have to offer as you're getting things set up. All right. Number 5. So this is another thing that people, I think, we get so excited about building our business, starting our business, we're getting money coming in, we're having expenses going out. Now we need to think a little bit about how are we going to pay. So 2 different things here, right, for getting paid. One is, how do you want your clients and customers to pay you? From a bookkeeping perspective, trying to keep this narrow is easiest. I know a lot of people that will accept PayPal, they accept Square, they accept Venmo, they accept cash, they accept credit cards, so every one of those is just going to add a little bit more complication to your bookkeeping system, I'll say. Depending on what field you're in, can you maybe narrow it down to 1 or 2 methods of, as we all know, a lot of us will use a card or a cash, right? That's okay. There's also people that maybe they'll only do Square and cash, or Venmo but just to say that if you can kind of limit how many different ways you're taking in money from a bookkeeping perspective, that will keep things simpler. And then the second piece of getting paid is, how are you going to pay yourself? So this is something that a lot of people will talk to their CPA about. We need to think about, are you going to set up yourself on payroll at some point? Are you going to just write yourself a check? Are you transferring yourself money? So something that you're going to want to figure out at the beginning is, how are you going to pay yourself? When do you want to pay yourself? And tax-wise, what are the implications of that? Which pretty much gets us into our next step. This might be early out for a lot of people, right? You're just getting started. Maybe it's just you. It's never a bad idea, though, to have done a little bit of research into your payroll options. So there are a ton of different cloud-based solutions, but it is something to get ahead of. At some point in your business, you may need just an employee or even an independent contractor. So just something to have on your radar. And then our 7th item here is going to be essentially taxes. So similar to talking with the CPA, I recommend getting sort of that 30-minute call with a tax advisor, or just getting yourself prepared to know in your line of business, what kind of things should you be looking out for? Do you do sales tax? Do you have payroll? If you have payroll, you have payroll taxes. Are you paying unemployment insurance? Any number of things, but these are going to be, you're going to want to avoid costly penalties down the line by looking at that towards the beginning of setting up your bookkeeping. You're setting up all of your bookkeeping needs. All right, so these are some of our actionable steps. I think we kind of, you cover these and all of those steps, but I think it's super important for people to partner with experts. So we're entrepreneurs, right? We're experts in what we're experts in. So, like I remember I was doing the Explore Design launch course, and another person in my class was a chicken farmer, right? This guy knows more about chickens than I will ever know in my whole life. But to also assume that he knows how to be an accountant and a tax advisor and manage all of his inventory, is a little much, right? This guy is an expert in chickens, and that is his business, and he is excellent at it. What he is maybe not excellent at is figuring out what his tax implications were for the year. There's no shame in that game. I think it is a great idea to, I call it building out your team. These are people that that yeah, when you do have the one-off question, you can maybe shoot them an email. You already have a relationship sort of set up for them. I do think that it takes a little bit of a village, and whether these people are fully, you know, they're probably not on your payroll. You're probably meeting with them infrequently, but they are going to have some great insights into, the financial side of your business. So I definitely recommend trying to reach out. I know that with MCSC, they're happy to match you with a consultant to just sort of talk through any of these pieces. But essentially, right, we've got our accountant. They're going to advise and analyze based off of the financial data. The data is provided by the bookkeeper here. I call them the data wrangler, right? So they're putting all of our data together and they're creating a nice report to be able to give to some of these other folks. You've also got a tax advisor. For some people, this is their CPA. For other people, maybe they don't have a CPA. You specifically only work with tax advisors. That's also a fine option. And then depending on what line of work you're in, there are consultants, of course, regarding, I think especially important would be inventory and payroll. I know that inventory-based businesses run into a lot of questions with inventory management, and just going to somebody who already has figured all of those steps out might have some advice for you, and especially how to integrate that with your bookkeeping can be super valuable. So like I said, it's not going to make sense for every brand new business to have a full team. In your early phases, you might just consider trying to call and getting, those free consultations, asking some of those one-off questions. Some major milestones that you're more than likely going to want to look into these kinds of people are if you are planning any major business expansion. Are you planning to sell your business? Are you planning on bringing employees into your team? So that's going to be a great time to touch base with some of these different folks and get their advice. I will say, as I mentioned, Mission Community Services has some of these folks. I know QuickBooks Online will match you with sort of a pro advisor. So there's plenty of ways to just kind of do a Google search even in your area or within your field, and try to match up with somebody that way. All right. This brings us to, we've got bookkeeping methods and software. So when we were talking about all of the data that you might have, and then essentially choosing, how do you want to do your bookkeeping? So what are our options? Where do we start? So if you can think about it this way, there's sort of some broad approaches to bookkeeping. So answer the question, what do you do with those source documents, right? So if you get a bank statement, maybe you're the type of person you kind of put that in a shoebox, right? Technically, that is a method of bookkeeping. The pros, hey, I have it. If the IRS wants to call me up, I've got a copy of it. We can look through it, right? So you do have some document or paper management. The cons, really no insight into your business. If I asked you, hey, how much did you spend on, I don't know, maybe you're a hamburger shop. How much did you spend on burgers, burger meat last month? I don't know. I'd have to look at, right? I have to go find that statement for that month. I have to add this up. I have to do this. So really, you're not getting a ton of insight into your business. My musings on this, I think it's a little bit risky, right? It could be a little bit costly. As far as if you misplace a document, if you're really not keeping track of a lot, right? You do have access to those documents should you need them in the future, but they're just going to get more and more unorganized and it's not super useful for you. I think that's just going to cost you a lot of money and time down the road as well. So imagine showing up to that book or to that CPA, right? The guy who makes $300 an hour and dropping him off a couple of shoe boxes worth of receipts. That's an expensive endeavor. So there's my 2 cents on that. Another type of person, a bookkeeping method is a spreadsheet. So I know for a long time, I am a Google Sheets kind of gal. I would put in, hey, here's all my income. Here's who it came from. Here's when it came from. Here's my list of expenses. So we've got some pros and cons here, right? The pros, you've got some data management. We're doing got some numbers to work with. You can probably analyze it a little bit depending on what kind of, your spreadsheet abilities. Maybe you could look, hey, here's how much I just spent in office supplies last month, or oh man, we spent so much on contractors. You might be able to pull that a little bit easier than the shoebox method. Our cons here, manual data entry. I will tell you that even the most meticulous of my clients, you always miss something. And that's just human error. So whether that's entering things backwards, whether that's, oh, I totally forgot I bought that thing off Amazon. Back. You definitely are there's the potential to be missing information. People usually, like I said, will use Excel or Google Sheets if they're kind of spreadsheet sort of people. There's also a lot of pre-populated spreadsheets you can get. Just download those, fill them in. Depending on how useful they are and how tech savvy you are with spreadsheets, that can work. And then we have the software bookkeeping method. So if you are the type of person that, hey, I've already connected my bank account to this when I don't even get a bank statement in the mail, right? I get that in an email. What do you want me to do with it? You're probably more of the software person, right? So there's a bunch of different softwares that are bookkeeping related. So you've got your pros, right? You've got your numbers. You're able to do things like analysis pretty quickly. So, hey, how much did I spend versus how much did I make last month? Or what's the trend? I see that I keep every month I'm spending more and more and more and more on hamburger meat. What's going on here? Do I need to look at a different supplier? This is going to be a lot easier to run these kinds of reports when we've got the data in our software. Some of the cons of this, if you're not computer savvy, this is definitely going to be more difficult. People that have a hard time kind of, logging in and out of their accounts or connecting and uploading, that's going to be usually more challenging for them. It can also get more expensive. Obviously, to run your own Google spreadsheet is free. And if you want to pay for QuickBooks Online, I believe Simple Start, I think, starts at $30 a month. I believe they do a discounted rate for a handful of months, but that can add up over time, especially for a really, really small business. So just something to consider. And like I said, there are dozens of options and choices regarding different bookkeeping softwares. And that's going to bring us to, this is just a little bit of a software comparison chart. I'm trying to see if yeah, this is mostly pretty updated here. So up on top, I've got a couple of the most popular bookkeeping softwares. So FreshBooks, I don't know if you have heard of that one. We've got FreshBooks, Wave, QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop. And as I said, there's definitely plenty more of these. And then something else to consider, there are softwares that might have accounting features in them, but they're not accounting software. So I know, for example, there's a lot of client management, the way that you send your clients emails and things that might offer some sort of accounting software. And there's going to be pros and cons of that. What I like about QuickBooks is that that's what it's built for. And so that is what it does best. But just to go through some of these options. So we'll start with FreshBooks. So FreshBooks is considered rather intuitive. Their pricing is on the lower end of it. It's not considered very good software if you're a bigger business. So if you're doing things like accounts receivable, accounts payable, any payroll, inventory management. So this is going to be really good, I think, for people that are maybe service-based businesses. You're one individual, a single owner, sole proprietor. And also, if you're just, for whatever reason, like QuickBooks Online / Intuit is not your cup of tea, I think this is where people end up oftentimes as another option. Another software out there is called Wave. I was really interested in this because it is technically free. They do add more fees if you're getting into accepting payments or running payroll. Some of the cons here, same thing. It's for really small businesses. So maybe that's one individual, probably not having things like payroll or inventory. There is no mobile app. So you're probably only popping into this online every once in a while. If you are trying to scale this business, there's nothing to really move up to. So it's hard to, if you do need to add more features into your bookkeeping or your level of understanding. But if you just really need something that is basics and you are kind of you're doing it all yourself, this could be a great option for you. We've got QuickBooks Online. Obviously, I am biased. I am a QuickBooks Online Pro advisor and a QuickBooks Live bookkeeper for Intuit. This is the industry leader. As far as the cons on that, I think pricing is definitely the biggest con. Like I said, I think simple start at $30 a month, which isn't impossible. But it does go up from there. And just as far as really little businesses that are just getting started, it just seems like a lot to kind of handle. I will also say QuickBooks Online is not the most intuitive. This is something that I have now studied for a couple of years, and I even get stumped every once in a while. So while it is the industry leader, there's a lot of pro advisors and people that are experts in the software. So I wouldn't say that it's the most intuitive software. This is usually best for small to medium sized businesses. It is easy to scale. You can always add on more features or upgrade your service, add in things like payroll, add in things like sales tax management, add in things like inventory. So I think when people are going with QuickBooks Online, that's something that they consider. And lastly, we've got, QuickBooks Desktop. Sometimes I don't even know what to say about QuickBooks Desktop. People that love QuickBooks Desktop love QuickBooks Desktop. To me, because I live in the online world and I do think, a lot of my meetings are virtual, I think it's kind of clunky. I think it runs pretty much about the same price, honestly, especially because Desktop has moved to a subscription model. So in previous years, you could just buy the actual piece of software and then you owned that software for as long as it worked, right? Now QuickBooks Desktop is like QuickBooks Online, in which that it's a monthly subscription model. So it's not necessarily a cost savings anymore. I will say that it's usually best for more complex businesses. So people that are, if you have an in-house, bookkeeper, accountant, a lot of these folks are using QuickBooks Desktop. Oftentimes because that's been the industry standard for the last 20 years. And so that's what they're comfortable in. And people that know how to use this software, they are, they're magic, they're good at it. I think as far as if you're just trying to pick up something and I don't think that it's very intuitive necessarily either. I would say I think QuickBooks Online is a little bit more user friendly and a few more resources as far as being able to check out a YouTube video or find a more updated guide on how to use it. So I'm hoping that this was a good, if you weren't kind of aware of what your different options were for different softwares and things, that this is kind of a nice overview for you. As I said, these are all considered different software options. And you can see that depending on what your business needs are, that there's definitely going to be, something that fits within that niche. And yeah, looking at my time, I know that I think I zoomed through some things here. I'm very happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.